The Los Angeles Rams finished the 2022 season with a 5-12 record and missed the playoffs for only the second time since 2017. It was their first losing season in the Sean McVay era, and it was an extreme reality check for this franchise just 1 year after winning Super Bowl 56 in their home stadium. It was easy to forget about this team down the stretch of the 2022 season, as Matt Stafford only played 9 games, Cooper Kupp only played 9 games, and future first ballot Hall of Famer Aaron Donald only played 11 games. And when your 3 players collectively miss 22 games, it's going to take a serious toll, and especially for the Rams, who did not have the depth other franchises have. But heading into the 2023 season, the Rams think they are not only going back to the playoffs, they legitimately think they can win their second Super Bowl title in 3 years, and that's much easier said than done. And in today's video, we're going to discuss how the Rams will do in 2023. It should not come as a surprise that if it's anything like last year in terms of their top 3 guys getting hurt, they will more than likely finish with a bottom 5 record for the second consecutive season. And heading into the year, the Los Angeles Rams have zero room for error. But how far can they actually go? Well, we're going to answer that in today's video. Now let's begin. And we are starting today's video by reviewing the 2022 Rams season and discussing how their season was going before the Matt Stafford injury happened. Because 99% of the time when a team starting quarterback goes down, so does their chances of doing anything significant. Yes, there are of course exceptions, but the 2022 Rams were not one of them. And for a team that was so easily forgettable or just out of sight, out of mind, like the Rams were last year, especially during the second half of the 2022 season, let's lay all the cards on the table here. The Rams in 2022, pre-Matt Stafford injury, were not a good team. Yes, they had their top 3 guys and even top 4 if you'd like to include current Dolphin Jalen Ramsey in this, but they were 3-6 when Matt Stafford started last year, with their only wins coming over the Falcons, Cardinals, and Panthers. And there's a common theme amongst these 3 teams. All of them had top 10 draft picks this past April, and when they played teams that eventually went to the playoffs, again this is while Matt Stafford was starting, the Rams were 0-5 with an average margin of defeat of 13.6 points per game. So even when Stafford was playing, they were getting beat on average by 2 touchdowns by playoff teams. And the only time they kept a game against a future playoff team in single digits was against the Bucs, who were a playoff team but finished the year with an 8-9 record before getting smoked by the Cowboys in the wild card round of the playoffs. And subtracting that game from the Rams' 0-5 record and the average margin of defeat of 13.6 points blimps up to an average margin of defeat of over 16 points per game. Again, this was against playoff teams last year while Matt Stafford was starting. And within these 9 games, or really 8.5 since Matt left the Saints game in Week 11 early, Stafford was sacked 29 times while throwing just 303 passes, and simply put, that's a major red flag heading into this year. And that would be a major red flag for any quarterback, let alone a player in Stafford who has a laundry list of injuries dating back to his younger days in Detroit. And for reference, in 2021, the year the Rams won the Super Bowl, Stafford was sacked 30 times in 17 games and threw 601 passes. So the rate almost doubled at which he was getting sacked, and what was kind of swept under the rug and not discussed at all by the national media in 2021, and granted winning takes care of these problems, but Stafford was tied with a rookie in leading the league in interceptions with 17 that year, and that rookie goes by the name of Trevor Lawrence. And fast forward to the present day, there's not a lot of people talking about Matt Stafford's interceptions, and had he played a full 17-game season last year, there's a chance he would have finished with back-to-back 17 interception seasons and back-to-back years of leading the league in interceptions. Instead, Dak Prescott takes a lot of slack from the media because he ended up leading the league in INTs despite playing in just 12 games last year. All of this to say, I think there's a narrative around Matt Stafford that because he plays under head coach Sean McVay, and that because they won a Super Bowl together, that he's going to come out this year with his hair on fire with a poor offensive line and throw for 40 touchdowns to single-digit interceptions. And I'm not an anti-Matt Stafford guy because I thought for years he was underrated in Detroit, and I was glad to see him win a ring in his first year in LA, but there's flaws in his game that kind of get glanced over. And aside from Cooper Kupp, the Rams' offense, not just receiving core, is extremely thin. And simply banking on Cooper Kupp to go for over 100 yards and a touchdown in all 17 games, which a lot of the time is what it's going to constitute to get a Rams win, is asking too much out of Cooper Kupp. And if the Rams are going to have sustained success this year, as in not having Stafford throw for 400 yards and 3 touchdowns to win one game, they're going to need Van Jefferson to step up as the number 2 guy. And I know I've been a little gloomy about this team so far in terms of what they realistically can do this year, but I do think Van can step up, and it's a matter of him staying healthy and maximizing what he can do as a player, because I do think Van can very easily be a 1,000-yard receiver, especially in an offense where Cooper Kupp is naturally going to get all of the attention from opposing DBs. And to go back to the title of today's video of the Los Angeles Rams have no room for error, they cannot have the injury bug get them like they did last year, and they very much think they are competing for a Super Bowl this year. I know it's cliche that all 32 teams expect to win the Super Bowl entering training camp, but guys, we can be realistic here. We know a few teams that have rookie quarterbacks that were selecting in the top 5 last year have a very, very slim chance. And for that matter, I also think the Rams have little to no chance to win a Super Bowl, but what I believe and what Sean McVay, Les Snead, and the Rams organization think are two completely different things. And the reality with Van Jefferson this year is he has to step up. He's in a contract year and will be 28 years old next spring, meaning if he steps up and has an 1,100 or 1,200 yard year, which I know sounds far-fetched initially, but it is possible, a team will be waiting and at minimum give him a Juju Smith-Schuster type deal, as he received a 3-year, $33 million deal this past offseason. Now, I know you may be thinking, how could Van Jefferson, of all receivers, accumulate 1,100 or 1,200 yards this year, and it's pretty simple. If Matt Stafford throws the ball roughly 600 times in a 17-game season, like he did in 2021, who's getting targets on that offense above Van other than Cooper Kupp? And even if Cooper has 200 targets this year, and for reference, he had 191 targets in 2021, the other 400 passing attempts have to go somewhere. And Van had 89 targets in 2021, and if he had 89 that year, why couldn't he have another 30 or 40 this year when the other receivers on this offense are Ben Skoranek, Tutu Atwell, and Puka Nacua? And the one thing about the Rams that will hurt them down the stretch is their run game is not good, and like we saw with, well, really a decade of proof in Detroit, you need a resemblance of a good run game. And for reference, the Rams finished 26th in rushing attempts last year, 27th in rushing yards, and 27th in yards per carry. Their top 3 backs this year are Cam Akers, Kyren Williams, and Zach Evans. Now, I did like the second round pick of Steve Avila, but speaking out loud, is Steve Avila going to lead this team to new heights and bump this yards per carry up into the top 10 and save the day? No. And if the Rams get down early, which is very possible with this defense, I think it's going to be a lot of hero ball from Matt Stafford and basically say, alright guys, here we go again, let's try and win by throwing the ball 40 times per game. And speaking of the Rams defense, outside of Aaron Donald, and if you are not a Rams fan watching this, how many defensive starters from this team can you name? The answer is probably not many, and the 2023 Rams, pun intended, are going to face the ramifications of trading away all of the first-round picks from over the years. Yes, they had 14 draft picks this year, and good for them, by the way, because I think that will build legitimate depth in the next 2 or 3 years, but this roster is not very good relative to the competition they're going to be facing from their division alone. And speaking of their division, they open up with 2 division games, one in Seattle and one home against San Francisco. And in 2022, the Rams won a combined 0-4 against these teams, and I will at least say they were close losses to the Seahawks, including a Week 18 loss in overtime in Seattle, and that was even with Baker Mayfield starting and completing just 50% of his passes. So needless to say, the odds were stacked against the Rams, and they nearly won. And despite my doubts with with the 2023 Rams. As cliche as this is going to sound, you truly can't measure how much fight these guys play with under head coach Sean McVay. I know we get lost as fans sometimes, but this is something there is no statistic on. And even when they were 3-9 last year, they did not quit fighting. They were down double digits in the Raiders game and came back from down 2 scores led by Baker Mayfield only 48 hours after him becoming a Ram. And that's going to be key in 2023, because if I had to pick these first 2 games, I would pick the Rams to start 0-2, and it does not get better for them as they play Cincinnati on the road in Week 3 on Monday night. And I think this is something Rams fans have to brace themselves for, is an 0-3 start. And to go back to the Rams defense for a minute, I do think John Johnson will be bumped up to first string, but aside from John Johnson and Aaron Donald, every starter on this defense is either in their 3rd year or less, and has been drafted in at minimum the 3rd round or later. And when you're playing opposing offenses like the 49ers, who will cause serious problems with their run game, not mentioning how they allowed 19 total points to the Rams in the 2 games they played last year, while sacking Matt Stafford a combined 9 times in these games, you are fighting an uphill battle. And for as unique of a last decade the Rams have had in terms of getting to the mountaintop and trading all of the top picks they did in order to acquire the talent they did, the draft is already enough of a gamble, as only about a third of first round picks work out, which really puts an emphasis on hitting on the rest of the picks. And believe it or not, the Rams did a good job of that for a few years. And I know everybody looks back at those teams from 2017 through 2021 and thinks about the stars, but the other quality starters, or in the case now of not having the other quality starters, sticks out like a sore thumb. And linebacker Ernest Jones is the best player for this team out of either of the past 2 drafts, not including 2023 of course, given they haven't played a regular season snap. And simply put, when you have the star-filled roster, you're going to be incredibly thin elsewhere, and eventually the late round picks you hit that are a low probability will come to a halt. And that's going to be the theme for the 2023 Rams. Internally, of course, these guys think they're going to step up in a big way, and if they do, I'll be the first to acknowledge I was wrong. But to me, there are far too many questions to think the Rams are going to seriously compete this year. If Matt Stafford and Cooper Kupp can both stay healthy for all 17 games this year, then they have a chance to put up gaudy numbers. But for the other guys in the offense, I have my concerns. While I don't necessarily think Cam Akers is a bad back, I think he's in a less than ideal situation, which is putting it mildly, and what has to be remembered is this team finished 27th in scoring last year, and in the 9 games Stafford played, they put up 30 or more in just 1 of those 9 games, which was against the Falcons. If there is ever going to be a team where coaches get the most out of guys and they exceed expectations, it will be with the 2023 Rams. Because what I want you guys to remember is I love this coaching staff. I love Sean McVay and I love Raheem Morris and think he'll get another shot at being a head coach fairly soon. Rightfully so, by the way. But at the end of the day, it's even tougher to accumulate wins when the talent is not equal to the opposition. I think the Rams will scratch and claw, but I don't think it'll be enough. And I think they should hit full rebuild sooner rather than later. Not every preview is going to be about a team that can win it all, and that's especially true when we get to another team in this division, but the team MVP, breakout player, ceiling, and floor are on the screen, and I hope you enjoyed. And if you did, please like the video and subscribe, as only about 23% of people watching are subscribed, and it makes a massive difference. Until the next team preview, please be safe, and have a great day. Love you guys.